Today I'd like to kind of review the ITElite Range Pro antenna for the GoPro Karma controller. The GoPro controller is a really good controller. It's compact, and many people have complimented its shape and size and design, and it feels really good in your hand, and it's just wonderful. But the problem is that the range hasn't been very good for the GoPro Karma, and if you look, you see those red marks on the plate of the back of the Karma controller. That is the size of approximately 2 antenna that controls the Karma drone, and they're not very big. So the problem with that is the question is, do they really support the controls of a Karma at a distance? That's where ITElite came in and designed their antenna to fit the GoPro Karma controller. The ITElite Range Pro is considerably larger, as you can see, and from the front end of the controller, its size is massively larger than those 2 tiny squares. Now what you need to do is you need to modify the controller case, and there's some adjusting and some removing, and it looks very complex, but actually it turns out it's pretty easy to do. I recommend that you look at some of the videos in the YouTube that describe how to install it, not just the one from ITElite, because the one from ITElite, it's done by a professional. It makes it look really simple, but there's a couple out there that are really good, because you can see them building the antenna on the GoPro Karma controller, and you can see all of the little details. Now the ITElite instructional video shows the technician removing panels and taking things out of the GoPro controller pretty easily, but it's not that easy, so don't get discouraged. I think the working time for this whole thing, if you have all the instruments, is really not that long, so don't get discouraged. Now one thing that I will say is that you need to get the T6 Torx driver in order to remove all the screws. I didn't have a T6, and I tried to use other instruments, and I don't recommend you do that because you can end up stripping the screw heads on the device, so don't do that. Now one point is that the size of the controller and the antenna now becomes somewhat cumbersome, and it's really difficult to use. In fact, you can't really pack the controller in the original backpack case that comes with the Karma. So now what you need to do is you're going to have to find some other way to carry your device and your Karma. And what I found was the GoPro Seeker pack. It worked pretty well for that purpose. And as you can see in this next view, that the Karma fits inside this backpack, and the controller also fits in the flap opposite. And one detail about this pack that makes it a little bit more inconvenient than the case that the Karma comes in is that you must remove the propellers. Now I've heard some people say that you can leave the back propellers on, but you just have to remove the front propellers. I just went ahead and removed both propellers, front and back, on both sides, just so that I wouldn't damage the propellers. And as you know, that's the most important part of the drone practically, and if you have a screwed up propeller, it's going to fly away. So as you can see, with everything packed into the Seeker pack, it pretty nice fit, and so I was kind of pleased with that, because there's no way that you could fit the ITElite Range Pro antenna and the controller in the original backpack. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and fly the GoPro for a little test run. Now on this day, it was rather windy, so I must admit that I didn't fly it and test the range of it. I was kind of concerned about the GoPro being blown off course, and I wasn't quite sure that all the wires were connected properly. So just to get it flying and controlling, that's really was an accomplishment. So I just want to say that while you may think that this might be for you, remember one thing is that the modification of the controller probably will nullify your warranty. So if you bought this controller new, or your Karma drone is new from GoPro, you might want to think twice about modifying the controller. But as you can see, this Karma is going pretty far. Actually, the video that you're going to see from the point I'm standing all the way to the destination is approximately 800 feet. Yes, it wasn't, several miles, but pretty far. I mean, you can see that the Karma disappears into the background there. And so I was pretty pleased with the range. Of course, we're going to test the range further later. But on this day, it's not really ideal. I mean, just look at the coconut tree fronds. They're blowing away from the land and to the ocean. So that made me pretty nervous. But here we go. Here's the flight that I was talking about. And from where I was standing all the way to that little enclosure, about 800 feet away. Pretty good. So I would kind of conclude this video by saying that I believe that the ITElite Range Pro range extender worked pretty well for this application, and so far so good. I mean, I haven't really tested it on an extreme range, and sometime in the future when conditions are nice and the winds are a little bit lower, I will try to extend the distance at which this will fly, and I'll maybe make an additional addition to this video. But until then, I'll have to say that the only thing I would say is, number one, don't be discouraged in when you're modifying your controller. It's, yes, you're going to hit a certain spot where, for instance, that pushing that base plate out was like really hard, and I had to press and push and push and push. Don't be discouraged. Be gentle, but it does come off eventually. In fact, everything that you see in that video does come off. You just have to be really careful and not be overly rough. And in most circumstances, I think most people can do it. You just have to be persistent and trust in yourself. Have that torque, T6 Torx driver, so that if you don't have that, the whole thing becomes certainly much more complicated. Go look at the other videos about others who are trying to modify the controllers, and so you don't get just a one view. And then what I did was I ran the ITElite video stop, start as I was doing the modification to the controller. The surprising thing is that the controller container has no instructions about how to do this. So you have to be prepared to just do it. And you have to kind of look at the video in order to get the instructions about how to modify your controller. But like I said, I've seen modifications for other drones, including DJIs, and they look so much more complicated than doing the GoPro Karma. So I would encourage you to go ahead and do it if your controller isn't, as I said, isn't brand new and isn't under warranty. Then this is really something that you can do, and it'll give you a little bit more confidence in your Karma and making sure that you're not going to go ahead and your Karma's not going to lose control, or your video feed's going to disappear. And so I do recommend this. Okay, well, until next time, happy flying.